Hi, this is Eli Carpenter back with PPR, Petoskey Private Radio, and here with me today is Greg Carpenter, the owner and founder of Crooked Tree Breadworks, located in Clock Tower Plaza. So, Greg, what did you do after graduating the University of Michigan?
My first job out of the University of Michigan was as a dishwasher in Tucson, Arizona. I traveled a little bit around the country, which I felt the need to do before settling down. And I had several different jobs before settling into what I do now, including most of them were food service, including waiting tables, working as a cook. I worked in bike shops a couple of times. I worked in a scratch bakery in Boulder, Colorado for a winter, where I picked up a lot of skills, and all of these jobs helped give me the skills I needed to work at the Breadworks.
What inspired you to start baking?
Oddly enough, the first thing I said I wanted to be when I grew up was a baker, even though I didn't remember that until I actually became one. I had a neighbor across the street who was a baker, whom I respected quite a bit because he used to bring me yummy treats in the morning, which was always nice. I used to bake with my mom when I was a kid, making cookies and Rice Krispie treats, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. But what really clinched it for me was some time that I spent in France when I was 20. I tasted really good bread for the first time, and I saw that European culture treated bread quite differently than we did in America. It was a larger part of their life and a far more valuable part of their life. The breads were incredibly good and incredibly different than what I was used to tasting in the United States.
All right, and I think you might have touched on this a bit with the last two questions, but what was your background in baking prior to starting the Breadworks?
Well, baking with my mom was part of it. But really most of my background in baking happened when I worked at American Spoon Foods, which a manufacturer of jams, jellies, and preserves. I worked in the research and development kitchen, and what goes better with jam than bread, right? So I was able to talk my way into a budget to learn how to bake at American Spoon Foods. Now, the budget didn't include sending me anywhere to learn. It included me teaching myself. So I set up a series of tests, 30 batches to be precise, changing one variable at a time and keeping really careful notes. And that's what I used as the basis of my knowledge. I started out making some really bad bread, but by batch 30 I had a real, true understanding of the nature of bread baking and a working knowledge of all the processes.
All right, and how did you come up with the funds to start the Breadworks?
I asked for a small loan of $20,000, which is not Trump level money, from my parents, and that wasn't enough to do it, but I was able to use that $20,000 to leverage it into an additional $40,000 for a total of $60,000 via a program through the Small Business Administration. It was called a low doc loan. It's basically a secured loan, a loan that is secured by the government. You take the loan out through the bank. If you default, the government pays the bank, so it makes it far more attractive for the bank to lend you money. So that's what I did with my initial $20,000, which was supposed to be a loan. My parents, who are amazing people, a couple years after I started the Breadworks, gifted me with the $20,000. They forgave the loan and called it a wedding present.
How have you expanded your business in the last 21 years?
It's been in fits and starts. Sometimes it feels like it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but I originally started out with half of the square footage that we have now, myself and a part-time employee. Over time, we've added products, we added wholesale delivery, we doubled our floor space and expanded our production facility, we added a second oven, we added a line of shelf-stable products, we added a second delivery route, and then in 2008, we decided to focus our energies a little bit more on the business, and you might say that we contracted a little bit because our reach of our distribution shrank. However, from a profit standpoint, we were still expanding. Now when we expand, we look for ways to get more of a return on investment from the investments that we've already made, which means adding new products that use existing equipment or existing inventory. The biggest thing that we've expanded in the last, I would say, 5 years has been our shelf-stable products, which are now widely distributed throughout Michigan.
How did you come up with a name for your business?
I wanted a name that was suggestive of what we did. And I thought Breadworks worked really well. It was easy to remember, told what we did, and it worked for me. And then 2 years later, when I incorporated, I added the Crooked Tree aspect because Crooked Tree references the Little Traverse Bay area. It's something that we have the Crooked Tree Art Center, we have Crooked Tree Golf Course, and it has roots that go all the way back to the Voyagers, and it suggests the Little Traverse Bay region. So I wanted to keep that, because it suggested this locale. However, it wasn't so local that I couldn't take it somewhere else if I decided to start another bakery.
Okay, so when you started the Breadworks, did you initially just bake bread?
I did.
What inspired you to expand to other things?
People coming in the door and asking for them is what inspired me. It didn't take very long, a couple months into the Breadworks, for me to realize that I had a captive audience sitting there who would buy other things. So I hired an additional baker, somebody who knew something about pastry, and we added muffins, cookies, scones, and a few other things. And then eventually we added the shelf-stable products such as the granola as well.
Why do you think you've been so successful in Petoskey, and would you ever expand to other locations?
Petoskey has been a very good community. I think the first thing that helped ensure my success was the timing of when I started the business. At the time I started the Breadworks, there was very little good bread in Petoskey. Most of the bread that was being eaten was soft, white type bread. And so there was a big hole that needed filling, which was great because I didn't have any competition when I started, which gave me the opportunity to make some mistakes and learn how to run the business. But the other thing about Petoskey that I think helps ensure success is that it's a very food-friendly town. There are a lot of people in this town that prioritize good eating and are willing to pay for it. They want that to be a part of their life, and those people are our customers. There are enough of them where I've been able to stay in business.
What differentiates your bread from those soft white breads?
There are a lot of things that differentiate our bread. Primarily the process that we use. Soft white bread could be made in a matter of hours, but our crustier, chewier, more flavorful breads, some of them take up to 3 days to make. So it's all about letting things happen naturally, and not encouraging things such as fermentation to happen artificially. We manipulate time and temperature over longer periods of time than most soft bread bakers do, and that results in better flavor, better crust, better texture, and in my opinion, better bread.
How do you source your ingredients for your bread?
Well, we look for flavor and performance in production first. We will use the best tasting ingredients we can find. Secondary considerations include local ingredients and sustainably produced ingredients. And those are the big three things that I use when I choose an ingredient. But the first thing I look for is flavor. If it doesn't taste good, we're not going to make it.
Do you have any plans for expansions or changes in the future?
We hope to expand the shelf-stable distribution further over the next 5 years. That's a big one. Probably not going to start another Breadworks anywhere but Petoskey. We're committed to this town, and it works really well for us here. Potentially expanding into some home delivery scenarios. I'm kind of waiting for the private sector to develop a little bit more. It's not something that we would do ourselves, but we would contract with an individual business who would put us on their menu, take orders, and come pick them up and deliver for us. I see that as a real viable wave of the future.
All right. Thank you for your time. That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
That was easy.